one. Let's see what are the pointers in C++. So C++ actually heavily dependent on the pointers. Pointers make developers' life much easier. So what's the history behind the pointers? Actually, C++ um, is an upgraded version. We can say it's an upgraded version of C. So C was actually for example, if you see as a kernel Linux system, and if you look at the code, there are a lot of C code there. So and like since C code doesn't have much of a functionality as C++ has, it was using pointers, references a lot compared to C++, in my opinion. But since we have now a lot of functionality in C++, we don't see too much of pointers now. We use a lot of STL data structures. We use a lot of libraries and stuff. But still, there are still some moments where we really need, where we really there is a necessity to use pointers. So what are the pointers? Let me first explain a quick memory of the C++, memory management of the C++. So how the memory is structured in C++ system is, I mean, not in C++, but in programs are like this. So each address, let's say address, has a value. So an address is represented by the 32-bit or 64-bit value, and the value can be represented same by, like, let's just to keep it simple, by an integer or the string or an array of integers, and so that our program will know where one particular integer or string is located. We need an address. So how does an address look like? It is if you just output by default, it's gonna show in hex values. So it's just a bunch of 0 and 1s in the memory, and when we output it converts to the hex value and it shows us like that. So let's first see in practice how we can see in addresses. So we have created an integer called a, which is equal to 5, and how do we output? Its address is by this expression. Yep, it's running. We did it. So here is the value of the address, and the actual value of the a, as we already know, is 5. Yeah, so now you see what is an address. But what are the pointers that you may ask? And the pointers are actually variables. You can imagine it as a variable which holds a value of an address, which pointers the name says for itself, points to some address. So we're gonna create a pointer called ptr, which gonna point to the address A. Yeah. And if you, for example, output ptr, you might guess what is an output would be. So it is the same as this one. This one is same as this one. So briefly, a pointer is can hold an address of anything, of a variable. So and what can we do with the pointers though? We actually can even access to the value in that address too. So how do we access it? So if you, for example, do like this, what it's gonna be? Yeah, here. Can you see that the addresses are changing here? Like, it's so weird, right? So that the value of an address is changing. It might be a bit hard to, yeah, it might be a bit confusing for you in the firstly, but let's try to dive deep into the reason why it's enabling us. Can you see that there is also a difference in the values too? So after we increment our pointer, we now pointing to another address where another value is located. That value is this, as we can see. So like, memory is filled up with a bunch of random values, like -100, -2,000,000 and something. But so when we try to point to like one random address, then we'll get totally random value too. That's it. But let's try to see another example with some more complicated data structures, such as an array. So we have an array of size 3 with the values 5, 1, 2, and we are pointing to the there are like some differences between a simple integer and an array. So first differences is obviously the structure, the format itself. We are giving a square bracket and specifying its size and stuff. So when we created an integer a, it was, for example, saving at address pti, there was a value called 5. But in the case of array, there are 3 values, a1, a2, and a3. So a1 is located at the ptr, and which is holding a value of 5, as you can see here. And where is the a2 is located, which is value of 2? It is located at ptr plus 1, and which has a value of 1. So and here 2, because like as you can see from the output here, we first output a value of PTR, and it's giving this address, and when we actually access that value in that at that address, we are having a 5. Then we increment it by 1, and from this our pointer pointing from this location, we're incrementing to this location, and now we're pointing at value 1. And now you can guess what is gonna change if we point to 1 more, if we increment 1 more. So it's gonna point to this location, and it's gonna point to the value of 2. So that's it. Shortly, the idea of pointers are that we need to, at some point of development, we need to point to some values in our array, in string, in even complicated the data structures, and even we can have 2 or several pointers pointing to the same address and changing same or accessing same values. And yeah, it is like there are a lot of things which are so interesting and so complicated, confusing, but it's exciting to learn. So I hope you understood something here, and we're gonna learn much more in the next tutorials. See you.